How's it going, guys? So we're going to do some maintenance on my buddy's Smith & Wesson Regulation Police. So he came to me and he told me he was having problems with it. When I was first tinkering with it, I realized everything was completely locked up. He couldn't pull a trigger, nothing like that. So I messed around with the ejection rod. It was a little bit loose. That made everything fine. Now the rest of it is what I suspect to be a either heavy fouling or a damaged or displaced trigger reset part. So the issue we're looking at, and it's a little bit tight there, but as you can see right there, it is in fact unloaded, because you don't work on things when they're loaded. That's how you get shot in the face. But anyway, the problem I'm running into is if I cock it like that, it'll move, but it won't stay cocked. Now if I want it to stay cocked, I gotta pull all the way back until it does that, and then it'll go forward, but then the trigger won't reset until I do that. So that's what I suspect is the primary issue. I'm going to tear this thing all the way down. It's going to get a full cleaning, and we're going to see if we can determine what the problem is and then repair it. So first, before we get started on this thing, I want to give a quick shout out to our friends over there at Workaday Custom Gun Leather, custom made to order. Go ahead and check the link in the description. First and foremost, we're going to look at the Regulation Police. We're going to figure out what this thing actually is before I start tearing it down. And what it is, it's a Smith & Wesson police pistol in 38 Smith & Wesson, not 38 Special. It's the smaller version of it, but it's actually pretty small comparatively if you look at it like that. And if you compare it to a Colt Official Police, it's actually pretty well dwarfed next to that one. This is also in 38 Smith & Wesson. We had a prior video with this one. This specific one is 38-200, but it shoots 38 Smith & Wesson. Anyway, so this is going to be the smaller one. Now it's just like any other Smith & Wesson. Instead of the Colt pull back, it's the Smith & Wesson push forward, and it'll kick the cylinder out like such. It's a double action, so you can pull the trigger like that, and you can see right there the trigger reset issue. Relatively short barrel. Now it's smaller frame. This thing's very light, very handy. So after I get it fixed up, we're going to do a shooting video on it too. So anyway, just doing a quick look over this thing. Everything is a flathead screw. Now varying size, so most of them are smaller. So I'm just going to use this right now to take the grips off. Obviously the video is going to cut because you don't want to sit here all day and watch me unscrew things. But it's going to take these grips off. These are nice wood checkered grips. Really nice. And the way they have it is just a single screw on there. Got a lot of gunk in there. And it just feeds straight on through. Alright, now off it comes. Now these pistols are really cool. These came around in, I think it was 1905, if I remember correctly. But I'll double check on that one just to be sure. So I got the first grip off, and it's 2-piece grips. I doubt these things have ever been removed. Neat. I think it's got somebody's name on it. So you're going to see right there is the mainspring, just like a Colt, the old style Colt. Let's see if you can see how the mainspring moves. Right there. Now, at this time, next I'm going to take out this little screw right here, and that'll release the mainspring here. Little trick that you can do with these mainsprings, these old style mainsprings, is if you just loosen up the screws on them to release some of the tension, it'll actually lighten up your hammer, but it's not really necessary with this. Alright, so if this thing's anything like a Colt, I'm just going to leave that be. Next I'm going to take out these frame screws so I can get into the guts of it. There's going to be a little spring from that front one. Put that with that. Now you want to make sure that you keep all these parts together, okay? You don't want to screw this up. They're definitely not making these anymore, that's a fact. Okay, and that's the last one off that. Remove that cylinder. There's the guide rod and spring. And just come right out. There's that. Right there, and that's the ejector. Goes together. Cylinder. Come right off. Super easy. Cylinder gate. That's the basic frame. Now we got to dig into the rest of the guts of it. Now this detent up here that keeps the cylinder guide, I don't feel like I need to take that out. I think that's fine. So I want to take off the trigger guard. Now I'm going to pull out the trigger, the mainspring, and get through on everything else just to see where everything is. And pull that mainspring out. Alright, lift off that side plate. It might take a little bit of convincing. Now this thing is old. There she goes. Now we can see the guts of it. Look at that. Just look at the workmanship on that. That's awesome. So I want to show you how this hammer works. So right there is the stop. The hammer stop. Okay. And watch when I cock the hammer. Just watch. That's how everything operates right there. So we're going to try and determine the issue here. See, now that I moved everything, watch this. It does seem to click, but it cocks back no problem. So I'm wondering if there's an issue with the mainspring. I don't know. There's definitely heavy fouling in here. And we need to carefully take these parts out because I don't want to lose anything. I don't want to damage anything. So far, it doesn't look like there's excessive wear on anything. I just took the hand out. So we'll just keep at it. Maybe it's fouling, maybe something just got jostled loose. I don't know. So I'm getting relatively smooth operation after I push back the cylinder ejector. Getting relatively smooth operation on everything. Now watch this. I send it back home. Looks like everything resets just fine. Take that hammer out. We got some gunk in here. That's alright. Now we got the hammer out. We can get the other components out. Pull that trigger out. There we go. Trigger. This little guy. Oh yeah, this thing is caked. Take off that cylinder release. Issue. Boy, oh boy, that's all caked. Well, after 100 years, what do you expect? It's going to take this thing all the way apart. There we go. Nice little spring there. So I pretty much have the frame stripped all the way down. I'm not seeing damaged or worn parts here. So I'm thinking either something just got super dirty or something got displaced somehow. Because I'm getting probably about 100 years worth of fouling out of this thing. So what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to clean it up and reassemble it and see how it works. Okay, so I've gone through and I individually cleaned each part. So now I got to reassemble it. So let me take the frame. First thing I'm going to replace in there is the trigger. So take the trigger and then you're just going to line it up like so. So now you'll be looking at this. Next thing I'm going to put in is going to be, I believe that's the trigger resets. So you're going to put the spring back in there along with the detent. Okay. With a little peg here you're going to secure it with. So you got to line this back up with this post. So this is a little bit difficult. So you get the trigger in first in the forward position, and there's like a little, kind of like a little switch there. You want to make sure that it goes in there. There's like a little groove in there. Push back the spring with your screwdriver and make sure it settles on that peg real nice. That way you can get it moving. Alright, moving on to the next thing. And this is going to be part of the cylinder release and also helps with cocking. So all you do is you simply replace it in there. There's going to be a little cutout. Replace it in there. Fits like a glove. Now don't forget about your little spring here. There's going to be a hole right in there. If you can see it, you simply put that little bitty spring in there. Just like that. Set it into the frame. See where the hole is. Now you're going to want to take it in spring first. Obviously, otherwise it'll never get in there. Push in on the spring, it'll naturally grab onto it. Then you're going to replace the hammer on there. So it's easier just kind of pull it, push the trigger, reset the hammer on this post right here. And boom, there you go, hammer's in play. And here you can see how the whole mechanism works. Take the hand, put in that little hole right there, all the way in. Make sure it lines up with the groove. Done. Here's the cylinder release. Simply put that back on there and screw it back in. Fasten it in place. Okay. Everything's in good working order. I'm just going to hit everything with a little bit of lube before I close it up, just to make sure everything is working as it should. You're going to want to make sure that that is sitting out there because your mainspring has got to grab onto that. Take your mainspring, hook it onto, so it'll look like this. See how it's hooked on there? Make sure that's all in place. Now at this point you can actually tighten up your mainspring. There she goes. Take your side plate, place it on there. Make sure it sits nice and flush, as it should. There it goes, nice and flush. And simply put your screws back in. Make sure you get that spring back in there. And that one there. Now when you go to replace the cylinder gate, you want to make sure that this screw is out. This one here. So you insert it, and this actually acts as a retainer. So you put that in there. Screw it back in. But before you do that, you want to just reassemble your cylinder assembly. Take your ejector rod, put it in, sit flush. Take your ejector retainer all the way in, screw everything in nice and tight. There we go. Alright, take that, place it in, close everything up, put that little retaining screw back on the side as such. At this point the gun should be fully functioning. And there she goes. So here's the problem I'm running into right here. So if I pull the trigger, right there, it gets hung up on the reset. Right there, that's the issue. So it keeps getting hung up on the reset. So I got to figure out a way that I can deal with that tension there, because there's a spring underneath that screw and it's causing tension on this right here. You see it moving, and that's what's causing the issue with the reset right there. That's where it's getting caught. Now as for the heavy hammer on the single action, if you can see where the sear is, so I took the hand off, and I'm going to show you why that single action
is so tough on keeping that hammer back all the way. If you look very closely, you can see it's a very small sear. So when you cock it back, that extra little bit right there clicking in place, that's where it is. So you watch where it trips it. And it's very, very tight. So it leads me to believe this thing was definitely lent more to double action shooting than single action shooting. So this seems to be a spring tension issue here. I tinkered with it a little bit more and I loosened the screw up just a hair, and now for the most part it looks like I've got good positive function. Now the thing I'm concerned about is when I'm firing live ammunition out of this thing, is that screw going to loosen up and shoot out on me? I guess there's only one way to find out. But I'll check with my buddy, see what he has to say about it.
So I put the grips back on, simple enough, and I think we've diagnosed the problems that we've been having with it. So originally we were looking at a total lockup, which turned out to be nothing more than this being the cylinder retainer being loose and ejector. Fix that. As for the full cock on a single action being weird, that's just the sear, and that's just how it's made. Now the last issue, and probably the biggest issue, is that trigger reset. And like we saw with that close-up, now we know what the problem is. So it's not my gun. I'm not going to alter it. Probably what needs to be done is that surface just needs to be polished, and that'll solve that. But other than that, that's just what he's going to have to deal with. The gun functions. It's in better shape now that it's cleaned up. Got some of that gunk out of there. Yeah, it's about as far as we can go with it. Anyway, hopefully this was helpful to some of you guys. If you have the Smith & Wesson Regulation Police, I guess you would call this a disassembly, reassembly video. I got to get all the footage put together so it makes a little bit more sense, so somebody else can possibly use it. Until next time, like, subscribe, share with your buddies, and holler out anything that you want in the comments. Until next time.